A shocking crime unfolds in quiet suburbia in a tranquil suburb that had long been a haven of peace. A horrifying crime unfolded, shattering the lives of an unsuspecting family. The peaceful community of Riverside was left in shock following the brutal murder of 42-year-old David Turner, a well-respected local businessman, by his stepson, 21-year-old Jonathan Turner. This case has captivated public attention not only because of its grisly nature, but also due to the complex web of relationships and motivations that led to this tragic event. A family torn apart. David Turner, a successful entrepreneur known for his philanthropy and dedication to local charities, seemed to lead a life of prosperity and harmony. He was married to Linda Turner, a beloved figure in the community who worked tirelessly as a school counselor. Together, they raised 2 children from Linda's previous marriage, Jonathan and his younger brother, Alex Turner. David and Linda's family appeared to be the picture of domestic bliss. However, beneath the surface, tensions were brewing, setting the stage for the horrific events that would follow. Jonathan Turner, a young man grappling with a troubled past and strained relationship with his stepfather, had long felt overshadowed by David's success and authority. Known for his erratic behavior and history of conflicts with David, Jonathan's resentment had been simmering for years. Despite attempts at family counseling and mediation, the relationship between David and Jonathan remained fraught with tension. The night of the crime, on the night of August 14, 2023, the Turner household was anything but calm. David, who had been working late at his home office, had finally called it a day. The family was gathered in the living room, trying to enjoy a quiet evening. However, the atmosphere was anything but peaceful. Jonathan had been increasingly agitated, and the simmering frustration he felt towards David was about to reach its boiling point. At around 10 p.m., Jonathan, armed with a .45 caliber handgun he had unlawfully obtained, confronted David in a fit of rage. The confrontation began with a heated argument, escalating quickly as Jonathan's anger took over. Witnesses later reported hearing loud arguments and cries for help before the sound of gunshots shattered the night. Jonathan shot David multiple times before fleeing the scene. A community in shock, the discovery of David Turner's body the following morning sent shockwaves through the Riverside community. Local authorities were alerted to the crime when Linda Turner, having found her husband's lifeless body, called. Emergency responders arrived to find David dead, his life cut tragically short by his stepson's violent outburst. The immediate aftermath of the crime saw a flurry of activity. The Riverside Police Department launched a manhunt for Jonathan Turner, who had gone into hiding after the murder. The community was on edge, with many residents expressing their disbelief at the violent turn of events in their otherwise peaceful neighborhood. The pursuit and arrest, Jonathan Turner was apprehended 2 days later, following a tip-off from a concerned citizen who recognized him from news reports. The arrest took place in a nearby abandoned warehouse where Jonathan was found in possession of the weapon used in the crime. The handgun, along with ammunition and other incriminating evidence, was recovered by police, providing crucial leads in the investigation. During questioning, Jonathan confessed to the murder, detailing his long-standing resentment towards David and how it culminated in that fateful night. He described feeling overwhelmed by his stepfather's authority and how it had driven him to commit the unthinkable act. The investigation and legal proceedings. The legal proceedings that followed were marked by intense scrutiny and public interest. Jonathan Turner faced multiple charges, including first-degree murder, illegal possession of firearms, and other related offenses. The case garnered significant media attention, with many focusing on the psychological and familial dynamics that led to the crime. Throughout the trial, the prosecution presented a detailed account of the events leading up to the murder, supported by forensic evidence and witness testimonies. The defense, on the other hand, argued that Jonathan's actions were the result of long-standing psychological issues and an unstable home environment. The aftermath and reflection as the trial concluded, Jonathan Turner was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The verdict brought some semblance of closure to the Turner family and the Riverside community, though the scars of the tragic event would remain for years to come. David Turner's death left a void in the community, and Linda Turner's efforts to rebuild her life and find solace in her grief were closely followed by the media. The Turner family's story became a poignant reminder of how deep-seated familial conflicts and unresolved emotions can lead to tragic outcomes. In the wake of this tragedy, the Riverside community has come together to support Linda and the remaining family members, with various fundraisers and memorials held in David Turner's honor. The case serves as a sobering reminder of the fragile nature of family dynamics and the devastating consequences that can arise when underlying tensions are left unresolved. On a cold October night in 1998, the town of Willow Creek was rocked by a crime so heinous it shattered the idyllic tranquility that had defined the community for decades. The Anderson family, David, his wife Linda, and their teenage daughter Emily, were found brutally murdered in their home, each killed in a disturbingly methodical manner. The discovery was made by a neighbor who, after noticing that the usually immaculate house was dark and uncharacteristically silent for several days, decided to check in on the family. The crime scene was gruesome. David Anderson, a prominent attorney, was found in his study, slumped over his desk with a single gunshot wound to the back of his head. Linda, a well-known real estate agent, was found in the living room, her face covered with a plastic bag, suffocated to death. Emily, a bright and promising student, was discovered in her bedroom, her throat slit. Each murder was clean, precise, and horrifyingly intimate, suggesting that the killer had planned every detail meticulously. The local police, unaccustomed to dealing with such brutal crimes, were at a loss. There were no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no DNA evidence, nothing that would suggest a typical break-in or a crime of passion. The only clue left behind was a cryptic note on the kitchen table that read, "You invited me in." The note was written in a shaky, almost childlike handwriting, but there were no prints, no traces of who might have left it. As the investigation began, the police delved into the Andersons' lives, searching for any indication of who might have wanted them dead. David Anderson had made a name for himself as a relentless lawyer, representing clients in high-stakes cases that often involved powerful and dangerous individuals. It wasn't long before detectives discovered that David had been receiving anonymous threats for months leading up to the murders. The threats were vague, warning him to watch his back, but David had dismissed them as the rantings of disgruntled clients. He never reported them, perhaps thinking that his legal acumen and status would protect him. However, these threats were just the tip of the iceberg. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered a web of secrets that suggested the Andersons' perfect life was anything but. David had been engaged in a long-running legal battle with a former client, Victor Caldwell, a wealthy businessman who had lost his fortune due to David's aggressive legal strategies. Caldwell was known for his ruthlessness, and it was rumored that he had ties to organized crime. Caldwell had openly vowed revenge, telling anyone who would listen that David had ruined him and that he would make him pay. However, on the night of the murders, Caldwell had an airtight alibi. He was attending a high-profile charity event, surrounded by dozens of witnesses. With Caldwell seemingly off the list, the police turned their attention to the Andersons' personal life. They soon discovered that Linda had been having an affair with one of David's colleagues, a man named Richard Callahan. Callahan was a successful lawyer in his own right, but he was also known for his volatile temper. He and Linda had been seeing each other for over a year, meeting in secret while David was at work. When questioned, Callahan admitted to the affair but denied any involvement in the murders. He claimed that he had ended the relationship weeks before the killings, after Linda refused to leave David for him. Emily's life was also scrutinized. A model student with a promising future, she had recently been accepted into an Ivy League university. But despite her outward success, Emily was struggling with deep-seated issues. She had confided in a close friend that she felt immense pressure from her parents to succeed, and that she often felt suffocated by their expectations. In the weeks before her death, Emily had begun to act out, skipping school and experimenting with drugs, behavior that was completely out of character for her. With multiple potential suspects but no concrete evidence, the case grew colder by the day. Then, the investigation took an unexpected turn. One of the Andersons' neighbors, Tom Jenkins, a reclusive man who lived alone, began to attract attention. Jenkins was a strange figure in the neighborhood, quiet, solitary, and often seen wandering the streets at odd hours. He had no known friends or family, and his interactions with others were limited to brief, awkward conversations. Despite his odd behavior, Jenkins had never been in trouble with the law, and there was no immediate reason to suspect him. However, several neighbors reported seeing him near the Andersons' home on the night of the murders. When questioned, Jenkins claimed he was just out for a walk, as he often did to help with his insomnia, His alibi seemed flimsy, but without any solid evidence, the police couldn't hold him. But Jenkins's strange behavior didn't end there. A few days after the murders, he was spotted near the crime scene, watching the police as they conducted their investigation. His presence was unsettling, and it didn't take long for the detectives to obtain a warrant to search his home. What they found in Jenkins' house was beyond anything they had imagined. Hidden in the basement was a small, dark room filled with surveillance equipment, cameras, monitors, recording devices, all focused on the Andersons' home. It appeared that Jenkins had been spying on the family for months, documenting their every move. In a corner of the room was a collection of notebooks filled with Jenkins' thoughts, written in a disturbing stream of consciousness. He wrote obsessively about Linda, describing her in terms that ranged from admiration to pure hatred. He referred to David as the obstacle and Emily as the princess in the tower. The most chilling discovery was a series of photographs taken inside the Andersons' home, images of the family going about their daily lives, unaware that they were being watched. The photos were taken from various angles, suggesting that Jenkins had somehow gained access to the house. But how? There were no signs of forced entry, and none of the Andersons' friends or family could recall ever seeing Jenkins inside the home. Jenkins was arrested and charged with the murders. The evidence against him was overwhelming, but during the trial he maintained his innocence, insisting that he was merely an observer. He claimed that he had become fascinated with the Andersons after moving to Willow Creek, seeing them as the embodiment of the perfect family he had always longed for. He admitted to watching them but denied ever entering their home or harming them. He insisted that someone else was responsible for the murders and that he was being framed. Despite Jenkins' claims, the jury found him guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case seemed closed, but the shadow it cast over Willow Creek would linger for years. Then, in 2004, a new piece of evidence emerged that shook the foundations of the case. A fingerprint was found on the cryptic note left at the crime scene. It didn't match Jenkins or anyone else involved in the investigation. The revelation led to a re-examination of the case, but by then it was too late for Jenkins, who had died under mysterious circumstances in prison just a year after his conviction. The discovery of the fingerprint reignited suspicions that someone else had been involved in the murders, possibly someone who knew the Andersons even better than Jenkins did. The case was reopened, but with so much time having passed and key evidence no longer available, the investigation stalled. To this day, the true identity of the killer remains a mystery. The Anderson murders continue to haunt the town of Willow Creek, a dark chapter in its history that refuses to close. The note left on the kitchen table, "You invited me in," remains a chilling reminder that the killer, whoever they are, may still be out there watching, waiting for their next opportunity.